Hello once again, our family. Energy Arts family.
Hello there.
EEARTS family.
EEARTS family. Good day, good day. I'm not sure when this is going out, so I'm not going to say good morning.
Well, it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood.
I can say happy day, good day.
Good day, fine lady.
Ah,
How are you?
why, thank you.
Wow, nice to see you here.
Yikes.
So, anyway, come here often?
I will now.
Okay. Matthew 24, 5 through 7. How many times did I read this and just say, ooh, it's it. We're almost there. As a little kid, and then come to realize, the bigger scheme of things and how reality is created and all. This is very famous. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and shall deceive many. And it's Yeshua is quoted as saying, when it comes to the kingdom of God, and they're talking about the second coming, look here, look there, look there. He says, well, you could look, but it's not about that. When we look a little bit farther into this, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, see that you not be troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in diverse places. Well, it seems like we have all the above, don't we?
Check, and check.
Check, and check. And we're going to go and we're going to check the news. And we're also going to go and revisit what we were just talking about. So we see this out of Bloomberg. China's hypersonic test showed unprecedented capability. And in fact, with the words that are coming out of the leadership of the U.S. military, well, you could definitely take it as being very disconcerting. As you see this, China's hypersonic NUKE fired a second missile mid-flight, leaving Pentagon reeling, as experts say it defies science.
Wow.
It defies science?
But we've seen this before, because the reason it defies science is because it's not our normal technology. It comes from way out there.
Yes. And this is part of the Great Awakening. If you've watched the first video that we put out today, was talking about, again, how the reptilians can't hold their form. And whether you think it's just pixelation and camera glitches doesn't change the reality that many don't want to wake up to. You don't want to realize, and it's understandable, that your leadership on the planet is not actually Homo sapiens sapiens. It's something else. Because that really changes things. Because you think about the possibilities, and we've seen atrocities that humans have done to humans, obviously. But when you're talking about a species that's not humans and just views humans as cattle, a herd of sheep, a flock of whatever poultry, turkeys, chickens, and they, think about it. Does a rancher have tons of remorse when he sells his, herd? Or is he just counting the bills and thinking about what he's got to pay next and how he's going to do this all over again and make more profit?
We are definitely viewed as a resource.
Exactly. Just think about that. Because what they're kind of hinting at here, at which we've said all along, is that the technology that is being shown by the fine dining ware country, well, they're going so fast, leaps and bounds, it's staggering. And as we've said in other videos, how did this seemingly happen overnight? And some will say, well, it's not been overnight, obviously. All the manufacturing's been shifting over there for years, goes back decades and decades ago. And yes, that's all true. This is part of a plan that's been manifesting over the course of decades and maybe even centuries, maybe even millennia. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves here. But when you see this, no country has previously been able to demonstrate the advanced engineering feat, and the test is said to have caught Pentagon scientists off guard. Last month, China stunned the world when it emerged that launched a hypersonic missile right around the entire globe. Now it's been revealed the weapon is far more advanced than originally thought. The hypersonic glide vehicle, a maneuverable spacecraft which can carry a NUKE warhead, fired a separate missile during its flight in the atmosphere over the South China Seas on July 27th. Experts at the Pentagon's Advanced Research Agency, DARPA, you know those guys. We could thank them for all sorts of things
Oh, nice,
in
pretty,
this world.
beautiful things in this world.
Are said to be unsure how China had achieved the feat, as scientists say it tests the constraints of physics. Military experts are said to have been poring over the data to discover how it was achieved. They are also said to be discussing what the projectile might be for. It was fired by the hypersonic vehicle, but seems to have no obvious target before it plunged into the water. Some Pentagon experts believe the projectile was an air-to-air missile. Others think it was a countermeasure to destroy missile defense systems so they cannot shoot down the hypersonic missile. And both Russia and the U.S. have been working on these technologies too. This here, it's also talking about how China's defense spending has gone up so much more, but there's so much fat, so to speak, in the U.S. military budget, which isn't there in the Chinese or Russian budgets. And when you look at what we have, and ours is under development, and at least that's what they tell us. This is all what they tell us. You show top speed 3,800 miles an hour to top speed unknown, top speed over in Russia, 21,000 miles an hour, can strike anywhere, period, on the entire globe in minutes. And, it's interesting. Even North Korea, they're putting on a par with us as far as the speed.
I know.
It's what it is just like we've been saying. The power structure, the true power structure here on the planet has shifted their base of operations basically to the Find Anywhere country. It's just that simple. Unlimited funds when the funds aren't even real in the first place.
Right.
That's the bottom line. Need more money? Okay, we add a zero. Mm-hmm. Need a lot more? We'll add a few zeros.
Yeah.
You're covered. It's fine.
No sweat off their back.
This is how it works. Now, this is just the power structure. They're shifting things. Why are they shifting things? Well, the USA has more citizens with, small arms than other armies have small arms. So, that is an issue. And, there's a lack of ability to control the actual people in the US of A, which is not the case in these other countries. There's absolute control in the Find Anywhere country. So that poses a problem to the powers that be. It's something that they have a plan for, and we're watching this plan come out right now. But this is, as Cindy said immediately, it's because this is extraterrestrial technology. That's the missing component. They've been here the whole time. It's kind of fascinating too when you look at UFO reports throughout the years. Right before the dirigibles, Zeppelins, the blimps came out, you go back about a generation before, there was all sorts of sightings of these flying ships that resembled blimps before there were blimps. It's the same thing with the saucer shapes. And then we know that, NAZI Germany, they did develop saucers that worked. And, it's because they were in league again with extraterrestrials. It's just right there.
It is. It's all right there. And you just got to kind of look at the power as it is, if you look at the plan, is supposed to shift to the Find Anywhere Corporation as well.
Yes, because USA is INC too. Mm-hmm. And, then there are sources that say, that INC is dissolved. And, we want to get there. We are getting there. We're actually making progress, which is beautiful. The Devas came through, the guides came through, Laurel came through from the Galactic Federation, saying that consciousness is awakening and that people are growing in strength. And this is good. We definitely are pushing back, and the timelines are shifting. Now, there's always a chance that when they don't get their way, they're going to try something just like that, that kid playing on the playground, and you all are playing a game. Maybe you're playing a game of Jenga, and he knows that he's going to lose. Well, he might just kick the whole thing. Mm-hmm. That's exactly the mentality of the leadership of this globe has. They'd rather wipe everything out than allow the other side, the good side, so to speak, to win. And here we see U.S. intel shows Russia plans for potential Ukraine invasion, as this is looking more and more and more likely. One of the things that we got from the guides that we can share, because this has all happened so many times before. This is a repeating cycle. Every time we fall into a dark age, this happens. Now, it doesn't mean that all of us are here for every dark age. Some of us volunteer to come here during the dark ages to help guide people through. Other souls are kind of stuck in a 3D, 4D loop, and they're stuck by the controllers as well. The controllers, that's part of their whole purpose, is they want to keep as many people with them, company. Again, they don't want to lose their flock. They don't want to lose their herd. They don't want to, let go of, that which gives them profits and labor and energy and loosh. They want to keep that.
And they have various ways of doing it. Like we watched a movie last night. I'm sure most of you seen it, but I had not. 1984. And there's different methods and how they keep you held down in the lower realms. So it kind of explains that a little bit in that movie. I thought that was really curious. But now they're just doing it a little bit of a different kind of way.
I think the biggest reveal in that movie is that you ask yourself why, when the main characters in the movie, the whole thing in 1984 is about Big Brother and this global situation. The fact that the wars are never intended to be won. It's just the threat of war. It keeps people in a certain mentality. It keeps them doing things without questioning. You have to have that element of fear there to keep the people doing things out of instinct, reflex, instead of questioning. The fear is absolutely a major part of their whole control grid. So the wars are never meant to be won. It's inconsequential almost who wins the wars, because they're still in control. Would life under certain entities be worse than others? Yeah, could be, for sure. But at the same time, it's still under the control of the controllers. And the interesting part is that the main character, is given a book which helps him figure all this out. But that was also part of the controller's plan as well.
Mm-hmm. Right.
To let them figure it out to a degree. Mm-hmm. And then what do? They basically use electric shock treatment to get him to love the controllers, only so that when he finally does say he loves the controllers and betrays everyone that's important in his life, then they execute him. Why would they do that? Why would they just get him totally to become one of their puppets and then execute him? Because it traps them in that loop for the next life. They let out a huge cat out of the bag with that one.
Yeah, that's a really good one. And I do suggest, if you haven't seen it, please see it. And then if you have seen it, watch it again and see what you get out of that, because it's triggering. That's what it did for me. It helped me understand the bigger picture. And, what is the one book that they have given us, in this 3D existence? We all know what that book is.
Yeah, because it says right away, your will be done, not mine. Right? And it's totally different from the esoteric traditions and in the East, where we recognize that each individual person is this divine spark of source itself. And the whole reason for your existence is for you to be you, be unique, be different. You don't have to conform. It's not about conformity. Now, the dark side wants conformity. They want you to be just like them. They want clones. They want assimilation in the Borg. Exactly the opposite of what Source wants. Source wants you to be a unique expression of you and of Source, and in the fact that you are completely different from anybody else that's ever been. That's totally fine. So you don't have to adopt anybody's belief system. Create your own.
Right.
See what that does for you. Create something different. You're not going to get damned by source. Maybe the controllers will.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I have done. I've kind of created my own. I call it. What do I call it? I call it. It's like Cindy's religion. It really is, because I took stuff from all these different places and I use it for me.
Yes. And that's an alarm going off in the background there, guys. I'm not sure what she's got going. It's nothing cooking in the oven. But anyway, this is part of our purpose, is to be unique. So we see Amazon wages secret war on Americans' privacy. Documents show, yes, of course, they're part of the whole grid. We could see who the parts of the grid are complete in their entirety right now. As you know, look to those that have done amazingly well in the last 2 years, since December 2019 specifically, since the whole outbreak of the plague upon the land. And when we look at these acts like the Patriot Act, which I don't think they're, in my personal humble opinion, could be anything more unpatriotic than basically doing whatever you want and taking away all civil liberties. But this is all part of that constant downward slope towards this Orwellian society, which they told us is going to come out, because they're the ones that plan this. They're the ones that give us the script. Sure. And by the way, you might have Governor McConaughey. It's showing that he's actually in a head-to-head meeting. He would beat Governor Abbott, and he would also trounce O'Rourke. So yeah, we'll see what that's going to look like.
That's right. We're going to kind of watch and see there.
Yeah, we had the Terminator governor, and now we'll maybe have Governor McConaughey.
Yeah.
Cloud seeding gains steam as the West faces worsening drought. It's like, this was the first time I saw an article that actually said, hey, you know what? We're seeding the clouds because we were going to try to make it rain in the West, where, perhaps the opposite thing is happening by certain powers. Now, who's seeding these clouds? Well, this was states like Idaho, for instance. The state. Think about all these unmarked Air Force planes that are up there, and creating their own clouds. And like I was sharing with you, I was talking to a person that lived in the area of New Mexico where we were, and he'd been there his whole life living on the reservation, and he knows the cycles. And he was saying, in the old days, see weather like this coming in, I know the next day we're going to get rain. Mm-hmm. He says, now I see the signs rolling in that we should have rain tomorrow, and then all of a sudden there's tons of spraying and there's no rain. Mm-hmm. That says a lot, does it not?
It does.
So when we talk about Matthew 24, again, you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Nation shall rise against nation. Look at the horrible things that we have seen on this planet just in the 20th century. World War II was the single deadliest conflict the world has ever seen in this current age. Let's put that part in there. Total estimated human loss of life was roughly 62 million people. Number of World War I casualties was over 37 million. Robert McNamara, in his regretful memoir of the Vietnam War, references a figure of 3.2 million deaths in the Vietnam War. Approximately 35 to 40 million soldiers have died in the wars of the 20th century. And the century came to close with a third of the world's 193 nations at war. So, you got to say, well, that just shows you we are in the end times, right? Mm-hmm. Well, let's look historically at what's been going on. When was there a time when there was no war? Look at this, pre-500 BC. We just see constant warfare. The Roman Etruscan Wars, the Roman Sabine Wars, the First Messian War. It goes on and on. The Greek Punic Wars. How about Sparta and Argos War? First Sacred War, Second Akkadian War. Oh, wow. Look at these. Look at the warfare. It looks like every single year. How about the early Italian campaigns, the Persian invasion of Naxos, the Ionian Revolt? How about the first Persian invasion of Greece, followed by the second Persian invasion of Greece? Let's look at these years here. Well, yeah, Alexander's wars. We go on and on and on. This is all BC.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Aetolian War, the Macedonian Wars. Okay, and then of course we get into Rome and Pompey and Caesars. Yeah, and here we go. We're into the time of Christ now, and then Roman conquest of Britain, and da 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 da. You know what? There's never been a time when there hasn't been war.
Right. I think really, if you go add it up, there might be like 4 years in there.
No, somewhere on the entire globe, there's a war always raging. Always. This is the system that we're in. There was never a time when there's not war. So when you hear the statement, you will hear of wars and rumors of wars, that's a big duh.
Yeah.
Of course, it's never stopped. Never. Point to any year of peace, really, globally. You will not find one. There's always wars going on.
Mm-hmm. And that's because that's one of their main tools to keep people in line, in control.
Yeah. So, okay, this really changes the significance, because what happens with war? Well, inevitably, crops get destroyed. There's always things along those lines. The young men that usually are out there, and ladies that are working the fields and stuff, they're off fighting. The men, throughout history. Nowadays, women, some women in some civilizations did fight as well. As you see, the wars never stop. So when you talk about a prophecy that's easy to fulfill, well, there you go, because there never was a time when it didn't apply. It always applied. There's always wars. There's always rumors of wars. Look at this. It's just nonstop. So some would say, well, it's just the human condition and place of the human heart. But I don't agree, because I think people want peace. Most people want peace. I do think that, there is a minority of people that, might have more malice in their heart, than peace in their heart. But then I think also there's major influencing going on. Major, major, major influencing going on. Have you seen any Years Without Wars yet? So we could take that Matthew 24 and say it applied any particular year you want it to apply. It never stops. This is how it's done. And again, this goes back as far as we can go back into history. When you look at the maps, look at the map of Europe, right? This was back in 1980. Of course, we had the USSR, we had Poland, right? Czechoslovakia, I remember that. I remember Czechoslovakia. Now it's two different countries. I don't even see Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. There's many countries that are now that weren't just 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 1900. Look at how it changed. Why does the map change? Because of these wars. People are always conquering and being conquered. As you see, the Austria-Hungarian Empire, and then it splits into two different countries. And we look back at this one. This one's going back another 100 years. And then, of course, you didn't see the Soviet Union, but you did see the Empire of Russia. And, you see the Kingdom of Sweden up there, as much of Finland was under the control of Sweden there. Kingdom of Poland. Poland was pretty large there. Well, where's Germany? Oh, well, it's not really on. It's not there. Prussia. Do you remember Prussia? And then we see the Ottoman Empire, which is trying to be recreated right now by Erdogan. And when we go back to 1500, we see, holy crap, Lithuania was a major power. Look at that. Remember Lithuania, tiny little Lithuania now? Look at the size of it. That actually encompasses so much of the Ukraine and into Russia. That's huge. Who would have thought little Lithuania was such a major power? But it was in 1500. So as we look through and we see this ever-changing map, ever changing because the war has never stopped. Byzantine Empire, 900 AD. This is exactly what we've been quoting, and go back to 500. Kingdom of the Ostrogoths and Kingdom of the Visigoths and the Eastern Roman Empire, Kingdom of the Vandals. Many people, are word of the with the word vandal, vandalism. Well, it actually comes from a certain grouping of people. And this is how they control. And again, you could go back to Genesis and look to, it says it all in the Tower of Babel. When people are unified, they can't have that. They can't have the unity. And then we are unified when we're out of the Kali Yuga. We become one people, and we become peaceful and truly civilized, not what you see as you look at Europe in 300 BC. How many of these names are familiar? Well, you might recognize things like Balts and Finnic and Slavic people and Gallic tribes. But again, the map ever and always changing, because there's never been a time when there hasn't been wars and rumors of wars.
Very, very true.
War is how they control us. War, money,
big business,
politics. It's all a part of this control matrix. Oppenheimer, you guys know him, right? Said that access to the Vedas is the greatest privilege this century may claim over all other previous centuries, talking about people other than the people in India having access to the Vedas. Why? Because of what's in there is very, very enlightening. So they asked Oppenheimer, how do you feel after having exploded the first atomic bomb on Earth? His reply, Oppenheimer's reply for that question was, not the first atomic bomb. The first atomic bomb in modern times, but not the first atomic bomb. He strongly believed that nukes were used in ancient India, which made Oppenheimer believe that it was a nuclear war that happened when we're talking about the Mahabharata. Maha means great, and Bharata means India, or India classic. And it's not just limited to India. You have to also realize that when we're talking about the war that's described in the Mahabharata, it was very expansive. And at the end of this, when these weapons are used and Krishna is no longer here, that's when the Dark Age came. And he had to leave basically because of the lowering of the frequencies and the onset of the Kali Yuga. These benevolent beings, which will be coming back to help us so much in such an easier way, because we're heading towards the higher densities now. We're heading towards the higher vibrations and frequencies. That's why they will be much easier to access, and we'll be able to interact with them easier. Right now, we only have a few channels like Cindy that's out there that can really speak one-to-one to them at any time. But everybody can access them through their own intuition, develop your own intuition. For instance, myself, I get things in blasts, like in pictures. I'll see things. I'll have these like visions or this knowing, but not in just a conversation form like Cindy has. But we can all develop our own gifts to our own ability, and we should be striving to do that. So this is fascinating to look at and recognize. But again, we had talked about, well, what does it say in these classic books that you don't hear of? You hear of the Bible, yeah, which again is giving us again such a limited little glimpse at the bigger picture, where you get a much bigger view of the bigger picture when you look into these books that tell you right off the bat there's like so many different humanoid species in our universe that you'll never encounter them all because there's so many of them. How about the fact of population? That alone is fascinating too. How many times have we gone through massive destructions on this planet? Well, in the Mahabharata, when you talk about how many people were lost in that war, how many soldiers were slain? 1.6 billion is the number that we're getting. 1.6 billion. wait a minute, 1.6 billion? What's the global population now? 7.7, 7.8 billion right now? As you look at this projection, 7.7 billion in 2019. 1800, they say there was 1 billion people on the globe. 1700, 600 million. And in the times of the Mahabharata, which according to most scholars will place them about maybe somewhere around 7,000 years ago. I should retract that. I'm thinking Rama. So Rama was around 7,000 years ago, and Krishna is around 5,000. 3102 BC is one of the dates that's accepted for the placement of these events, and when Krishna leaves Earth. So that's 5,200 years ago. Can you imagine a war that happened 5,200 years ago, when we're kind of thinking of people as just, still being so primitive, but having the use of weapons equal to or greater than current NUKE arsenals, killing 1.6 billion people in a single battle, in a single war? Think about that. How distorted is this? How many people were alive at that time? When we go back and we look at the numbers that we saw from World War II and World War I, and if we're talking about 30 to 50 million people dying in those atrocities, and we go back to the wars of the Mahabharata, 5,100 years ago, and we see 1.6 billion died in it. If that's an accurate number, what was the population of the entire globe? Was it 10 billion, 20 billion? Was the population, triple, quadruple, 5, 10 times what it is now? That's a big, big question, is it not?
It's huge.
And here's another article talking about this war. Very fascinating too. Very, very fascinating. And so, it's very, very interesting too that Brahma, who some view as the creator god, not Vaishnavites. Vaishnavites view Vishnu really as the creator, but Brahma is not worshipped. And the Brahmastra is a weapon made by Brahma. He used to be worshipped, and he's not worshipped anymore, so it gets you wondering. Many have made the connection too to the fact that, again, when we look to, and we were actually, it's going to be a video that's coming out later that we've done, looking again at the connection between, say, Isis and Horus, her son. And then we see Mary and the pictures of baby Jesus. And we know that so much of the Bible is taken from other sources. We know the first flood story we know about is the Sumerian flood story. It's 1,200 to 2,000 years predating anything biblical. Well before. Far greater detail. We know that there's a tradition amongst the Hebrews of sitting Shiva. They call it sitting Shiva. It's Shiva, just like the god Shiva, where it's basically a period of mourning for the dead. And again, Shiva, one of the views of Shiva as kind of the god of destruction, dissolution. Yama is technically the god of death, but it's interesting that they call it sitting Shiva. And then Abraham, Brahman. Abraham, Brahman. Many have made the connection and said that really the Hebrews are Brahman. They come from the Brahmin class, which is the priestly class of people of the Indus Valley, and think that that's really the origin of what we would call the Jewish people. And when we look to Brahma, and who's his wife? Sarasvati. Brahma, Abraham, Sarasvati, Sarai, right? You could see these connections. And, there's so much that is taken. Again, this, you got to ask yourself, why does every single president put their hand on the Bible and swear by it? Now, if the Bible truly was something that was completely the word of source, wouldn't the dark ones feel pain putting their hands on it? Wouldn't they like shy away from it? No, they don't. How about, anointing with holy water? We see, movies where vampires are squirted with holy water, they burst into flames. Well, what about the Pope?
Right.
What about all those priests and all those dark events that have happened over the year that have come to light? You got to ask yourself these questions and look to it. How about the jealous, vindictive God of the Old Testament, where it says, I am a jealous God? Well, the minute you say a, you're saying you're one of more than one. You're not the only. And again, that's because it's not source. There's just one source. But there are many beings that have been called gods. And then we could get, like we have touched on, the Yahweh texts and the Elohist texts. And then there's the priestly ones. And some people have made comments that, yes, they did recognize this. They understood that there's different sources that were putting together the Old Testament at different times. And it was always being edited, redacted, changed, updated. And when we look to the King James Bible and we see who was King James, well, he was the head of all the Masonic lodges. He was the insider's insider. He was, as much a part of all the controller mechanisms and control grid as anybody in that group that starts with an I and ends with an I. Think about illuminating, right? And then we go to the original construction of what was going to become the Bible, where there was, several hundred different gospels, and we only have 4 now. That's because, these were the ones that were chosen, edited, redacted, and made to fit a certain philosophy, so to speak, by the pagan Roman emperor at that time, who ended up, because he felt like he might be overthrown perhaps in the future by his son, with the aid of his first wife, had them both executed, and also persecuted those that would not convert. It killed tons of people that would not convert, that were, say, Gnostics or other religious traditions, and they would not convert to the one true Catholic faith that they gave us. So, when we look at all this, it's so clear and so obvious, the control grid. And, we've commented on this many, many times throughout many, many videos. And hopefully you guys find this illuminating.
We definitely hope so. I know one of the things that really helped me step out of my box is understanding, looking at the Bible and then looking at the Sumerian writings and seeing all those parallels, all those different parallels of the same story. It's like the same story, the same story. It's like, wait a minute, then I really had to pause and ask myself, what am I doing? I'm not allowing myself to explore my soul because this book is making these claims, but what about this over here? I just had to ask myself, and that really went a long way in helping me understand that there is this control matrix, and it's under the guise of saving your soul and having you be, a good person. So it's not a nice thing to do.
Did you know it was a common practice to give an indulgence? And what was an indulgence? Well, if you wanted to divorce your wife, for instance, even if you had her offed, so to speak, you could buy forgiveness if you donated enough money to the church, and the church would forgive you. Of course, if you were a peasant, you couldn't divorce your wife. There was no getting around that. She couldn't divorce you either. So, the church has always been one to take bribes, and that just says a lot right there in and of itself. The whole practice of indulgences. It's, the church, again, is part of the main control group that we've had. And sure, there's been reformations, such as Martin Luther's and all. And so, many things have been revealed, but still, you're still going off the basis of the book that was given to us starting with the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, because they burned everything else. Somebody else said, where can I see the other 200 Gospels? And the answer is, well, you can't really, because they're burned, they're gone. I mean, there are some that we found with the Nag Hammadi texts and the Dead Sea Scrolls. Unfortunately, many of them are just fragments. And even with the Gnostic texts, what we have gotten is, yeah, they're better, but still a lot of them are twisted or distorted or misunderstandings of how things really are. Again, like Oppenheimer said, I think, you're better served looking eastward and looking into the mystery traditions. Hermeticism, Kabbalah, that is where you'll find more real truths, and not necessarily in what we have gotten handed to us as script. Sure.
Right.
Yeah, so go deeper. But thank you guys so much, as always, for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. We couldn't do it without you guys. Do check out and continue to support Medicinal Foods. They're great people. There's a link on every video, and it does help the channel when you use that coupon code EEA, and you get a discount as well. Keep sharing your thoughts, and let us know too, what do you want to hear more of? What do you want to hear more of? Because this type of stuff is the stuff that we love to do, as well as basically letting people know, who really are the good guys that are out there for you. Because even though, it's distorted, Yeshua is an amazing being, and Yeshua really is out there pulling for us every single day. So please do call out to Yeshua. When you call out to Yeshua, you'll also be basically calling out to both Marys, because they do all work together. So Mother Mary and then also Mary Magdalene. And we're going to go into more depth in upcoming videos, as those are beings that we commune with on a regular basis, and we have a lot more to share.
Yep.
God bless and namaste.
Namaste.